Hi, I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you're managing a more complex project than normal. I think most of the time we can get away with spreadsheets and some simple software to help us manage tasks and to have a Gantt chart to see how everything fits together. But actually sometimes when you've got a really complex project like the one I'm working on at the moment, there are so many stakeholders and so many interdependencies that a sort of a standard process where you can just see stuff isn't enough. And the beauty of actually mapping the dependencies is the critical thing. So you need to understand that if you change that variable, it has an impact on 30 variables ahead. Just a normal Gantt chart that isn't linked and it doesn't map these interdependencies means that you can't really get a proper view on it. But actually, the more complex you get, the more you tend to need something. So this is my situation a few days ago, and I was looking for some software to try and support this more complex approach. And what I found was there was things like lucid charts that look great, but actually really quite difficult to use and actually start to charge as well as you start to use it. And then there was lots of other software that is all encompassing and does all sorts of things and gets quite expensive as well. So what I wanted was just a standalone tool that could do this, just this explicit dependency mapping for me. Because I'm going to use my normal tools, AOA, to do all my standard Gantt charts and my task management and such like. I don't want to change that, I'm embedded with that. But I did want this ability to really understand the dependencies so I can really map out the timelines for the project. So it took me quite a long time and a lot of research and kissing a lot of frogs, but actually what I've found and what I've come across is this tool here called Gantt Project. So it's GANTT project.biz. And the reason I'm quite excited about it is just really standalone. It does the job that I want it to do. And as you can see here, you can download it for free. So you're going to start a new project. I'm not going to go through too much detail because it's really quite self-explanatory how to use it, but I will give you a bit of an overview. We're going to start off with a task here. So here's the task button. So if you click on that, you'll start a new task, and then you can type in. Understanding the project might be the first phase. So we're going to enter into that, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add another one. So we're going to break, this is basically the heading of this phase, if you like. So I'm going to add another task, which could be document research. Okay, now what I want to do to get that as a subheading to that, I'm going to click on that, right click, and then I'm going to indent. And then you can see what happens. You can move around this, by the way, by sort of just putting your left mouse click and then dragging left to right. So what you'll notice here is that this understanding the project has become like a header, and it's going to just frame the section that you're working with. So let's do another one of interviewing key manager, let's say, to understand what their expectations are. And then maybe the next one is going to be an AOA mind map session. Okay, so you can see how these are starting to build. So let's put some detail into each one. So that document research is going to start on the 2nd of March for some reason. So let's get up to date and say we'll start that on the 22nd of April. 23rd of April, let's go. Sorry. 23rd of April we're going to start, and this is we're going to have 10 working days in here for this. And for this understanding the project phase, I want to give it a certain colour. So I'm going to give it that light blue colour. So you've got lots of flexibility. Considering it's free software, it's really easy to use and it's got the core functionality you need. It's not got massive bells and whistles, but it's the foundation of what you need, and I don't think you need things that are too complicated. So click OK to that. Interviewing key manager. Let's say that this is going to be a milestone, and we are going to choose that. We're going to change. Milestones can be a different colour, so we'll go with that sort of pinky colour just to make it stand out a bit. And what you can also do is you can add notes in here. Make sure you ask X, Y, Z. Okay, and then you'll see that the note comes to the right hand side of the page. So you can always click on that to see what the note is related to that particular task. So you're just starting to get a feel for this. Let's add another one. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to move that down. Right click, move that down. And we're going to turn this into another headline phase. So we're going to right click and I'm going to unindent. So now you can see it's at the same level as understanding the project. I think you can indent and indent and indent as well. For me, I'm always happy with one indent. So this might be a stakeholder. So then we can create another task after that, and we're going to indent this. So then we're creating another sort of headline phase for this. You can see how you can build this up. Very similar to what you would do if you were doing this in a spreadsheet, and again this can map out very similar than if you do it in a spreadsheet, but you'd have to build formulas in your spreadsheet. This is just doing it for you instantly. Another interesting thing is that you can add columns. Right click on these headers and manage columns, and then highlight the one that you're interested in and then show selected, and it pops up here. Click OK. Then you can resize these so you get the sizes that you need by normal sort of Windows drag and drop. Some of these titles will be longer. So hopefully you've got the idea that it's quite easy to build these. You can double click on them to change the colours. You can enter the durations and change the dates. You can click on this button to create a milestone that we did earlier. You can edit your notes by typing in here and it comes to the end of the sheet. Noticed earlier that when I was talking about that you couldn't see it. So when you enter a note here, it pops up to the right here of that particular task. Okay, so this is the good bit now. So now I'm going to put a dependency that I can't have that interview with the key manager until I've done that document research, because that document research is really going to drive that interview. Okay, so literally let's zoom in a bit so it's a bit easier to see, and that's just a zoom in there. Move around by clicking and dragging. So there's my milestone. So now I want to put these dependencies in place. So I'm just going to put my mouse over it until it changes shape like that, and then click left and then drag that arrow to that milestone. So then you can see I can't interview that manager until I've done that document review. But then let's say I'll start this AO mind map session after I've done the interview with the manager. So let's create that dependency. Okay, then we're off to the races. And then we will only do the stakeholder mapping after we've done the AO mind map. So then again, let's do the same again. Or you might say that I can actually start that once I've had that meeting with the manager. So you've got two interdependencies here and they're both mapped, but the critical path is actually linked to this one because this one's longer. Now let's zoom in again now. It's a bit easier to see. So let's put another task in and we'll indent this one. So you can see there we've got phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Okay, so it's starting to take some shape now. Obviously I'm just doing this really quickly just to give you a feel for it. Just want to give you a bit more information about how the interdependencies work. So these first actions are all quite sequential, but everything doesn't have to be that sequential. Some things you can start in parallel, and that's where it can get really complicated in terms of where these dependencies work and where they don't need to, where you've got some slack in the system with some tasks. So a good example might be that you can't start the AO mind map until you've had that meeting with the interview with the key manager. Now, rather than starting the stakeholder management after you've done this section here, you could start that on that trigger of that meeting there. It can be really flexible, really dynamic, and quite complicated. So understanding what needs to drive what is very easy in this system. Not easy in an Excel spreadsheet at all. A logical approach would be that you maybe wouldn't have your comms meeting until you've done your stakeholder work. So we could link that one to that one and bring that up here. So then what this tool does is if you show critical path, it shows you all the tasks that are really instrumental in driving this timeline. So we're starting here, project start here, project end here, and the really key things for the execution of this are this task, this task. You'll notice that this task isn't critical because you've got loads of time. There could be some slack in there up to here, because this one is taking so long. So I'm hoping that that explains it. The best way to do it is just to play with the system, and when you know your own project and you know your own tasks, this becomes easy to do. Okay, so the next thing I just want to show you before I close out is you can add resources to this as well. There's a few more things to show you. So get to resources and click new resource. You can type in here Anthony, you can put details in, you can go into more detail in planning days off and all sorts of things, and then what you can do is you can allocate key people to these tasks. So if we go to resources and we can now add Anthony in here. Okay, so it becomes quite a good useful mapping tool in terms of who's doing what in terms of these tasks. Then once you've set that up, if you go into resources here, you can see, so imagine you've got a team of 6 people, there'd be 6 people here, and depending on the tasks that you've allocated to them, you'll be able to see all the resources and when they're working on these things. So that becomes quite useful in its own right as well. And then one last thing is if you go to view and per chart, you can see in a sort of a visual map approach how all these tasks are linked with the dependencies with the arrows. So it's a really, really nice tool, given that it's free and it just focuses on that Gantt interdependency requirement, which is what we need. So yeah, I hope you like this finding that I've come across this week. Have a play with it. That's the best way to get familiar with it. I'm sure there's more that it can do than I've found so far, but I wanted to share this because I think it's a really, really useful tool. Okay, great. Thanks a lot.